Hello and welcome to Pennis Lynn, part of the Northgate family. On today's instalment, I will be building and painting a 3D printed wagon by Nick Clark in 009. First of all, let's look at the parts and the quality of the prints and see what kind of cleaning up needs to be done. As you can see, just before recording this video, I noticed there was a slight blemish, as such, inside the wagon body, which did show through onto the outside. So I did go ahead and fill that before filming this video. Despite that slight blemish within the body, the whole print is to a very high standard, and I really wasn't disappointed when these came through the door. Next of all, I will be showing you the coupling sockets, or coupling pockets as Pico called them, which in their catalogue number is GR-103, and they're coupling pockets for use with GR-102 couplers, of which I have got as well. The wheels that I am using are wheels from Graham Farish from their N-gauge range, and they are catalogue number 379-411, and they are their wagon wheels spoked, and you get 10 in a pack. I also use Loctite gel super glue, and the sanding sticks that I use are from Hobbycraft in the UK. You can get similar online via Amazon or eBay. For the weight, I have used a screw out of an old computer, and I will also be using a cocktail stick, but that will be shown later on as to why. The filler that I have used is Plasto by Revel. The transfers I'm using are GWR Wagon and Van Insignia set by PC Models, and they are press fix, and HMRS transfers sheets number 25 with their BR Revenue Wagon lettering pre-tops. And here's one that I made earlier. This one was basically my test model, and I'm actually pretty impressed how it came out. As you can see, the outcome was very nice, and I was impressed. First of all, we do some clean up to the chassis. Just a little bit of scraping around the edges just to ensure a nice snug fit, but also just to get any resin dust out so then it doesn't try and bond in with the glue. And then onto the wagon body. This included scraping out any of the panel lines, but also just giving it a general clean up, and also a quick sand over with 240 and 400 grit sanding stick, of which you saw at the beginning. I'd also just like to take a moment to say that I had noticed that there was a slight bow on either side of the wagon body, and that is why I'm going to be using a cocktail stick. It's pretty much the same routine with the roof really, just sanding over any of the print lines, just so then they don't show through as much, or at least try not to get them to show at all during the painting process and the finishing process. Once the sanding's done, we can start on assembly. First of all, I tip the body upside down and rest it onto my sanding stick that I was using earlier, just as a bit of a rest because of the round tops to the wagon body. And then I apply a little bit of Loctite super glue all the way around the edge. And once the glue is applied, I then put the chassis on using that area that I was scraping off earlier on in the video. Now it's quite a snug fit, have patience and try not to flex it too much, otherwise you could break it. Resin prints are very fragile. Next, I'm taking that cocktail stick that I mentioned earlier and using my Citadel snippers to take off the pointy end on one end. And then what I'll do is measure it up, but with the length of it, I'll make sure there's just enough length to just take that bow out of the body sides. Here's that computer screw I mentioned earlier. Now this will give it just enough weight to be able to keep it on the rails. So I use a bit of Loctite super glue just like the rest and apply it to the flat side of it and then stick it inside the wagon body. After applying the weight, I then use the cocktail stick and glue that in the same method, but this time making sure that the ends of it are pushing out on that wagon body. And there you go, no more bow in the body side. And also you can see the weight in there. So, what I'm doing now is I'm putting the roof on. I'm using the same super glue as the rest of this build so far. And what I'm doing is, on the roof itself, there is a lip either end that I put a little bead of glue on. And then also along the top of the long side of the wagon bodies, I put a bead of glue there as well. Now be careful when you put this roof on. It is quite a snug fit. However, if you don't get it right, it will dry wonky. Now, I was going to go out and spray primer onto this, however, it started raining, so I couldn't do this as I have to spray outside. Luckily, again, I had another wagon prepared, just for this, just in case, because originally I wanted to do it all almost like a one take. So, the first colour I'm using is number 64 Medium Sea Grey by Humbrol. It's quite a good grey to be fair, but the only pots of it I've got are out of those Airfix starter kits, but it will do. It's the grey of choice, and after some colour swatches, it looks like it's going to do the job. Now, these starter kit paint pots, they are quite well renowned for drying out quite easily, drying out quickly, so I have watered mine down, so it took in total about 3 coats of this colour to actually get a nice rich grey on there with no colour, no undercoat coming through. And then I go around and just touch up all the black areas with number 6 by Revel, and it is their Tar Black. Quite a good black to be fair. I've used it quite a lot instead of normal matte black. It's just a bit duller to be fair, and it's definitely good when you're doing railways, when it comes to railway modelling. With the same black, I go around and start picking out some of the framework on the body itself, including all the corner braces, vertical supports, diagonal supports. Just pick them out, brings a bit more interest, and also very reminiscent of a couple of wagons I have seen in photos from the Welsh Highland Railway and also the Staples Barn Railway. It's funny I should mention Staffold Barn, because I think two of my favourite YouTubers were actually there at their most recent Model Railway exhibition. One is Laurie from Laurie's Mechanical Marvels, and the other one is Trist from Double O'Neill. But anyway, back to the scheduled programming. The next step is just to go around and touch up around the edges where I might have got any black from the framework onto the wagon body, so this does require a slightly finer brush, but that's absolutely fine. I've got a whole pot full of brushes. So, for the roof, I'm using a grey that I've used on all my rolling stock in 00, N-Gauge and 009. It is number 47 by Revel, and it is called Mouse Grey. This also will take a couple of coats. It took roughly 3 coats again to be able to get a nice smooth finish. So, the majority of the painting's been done now. We're getting quite close to the end. So, all I've got to do now is pick out the end of the handbrake handle with Corax White from Citadel. One of the next things that I do is I use a homemade black wash that I've made using artist black acrylic paint and thinned it down quite a bit with water. But I find this creates quite a nice black wash and works quite well to give quite a subtle pick out of all the panel lines, which is something that I really like with the outcome of this wagon. When it seeps into the panel lines, it's not big, black, in your face, black lines through it. It just has that nice little bit of shadow. Now for some transfers. The first ones of which are meat transfers from the BR Pre-Tops set by HMRS Transfers. For those of you that do not know how to use press fix transfers, what you do is you're presented with a sheet, and on the sticky side is the reverse of what you want to put on. And what you do is you cut that out very lightly with a scalpel, just enough to score the paper, peel it off, apply it to the area that you want, and then you dab a little bit of water on it. It could be warm or cold, doesn't matter. And then after a while, that paper will lift off and leave the transfer on the side of the vehicle in which you're trying to put it on. And then once that's all done, you just dab it with a piece of tissue and you're away. The same method is done for all the numbers as well, which are from the Great Western set of transfers that I showed at the beginning. Now it's time to put the wheels in. I've already put one in just to show you what it looks like once the wheels are in. But I'm going to show you how to put this next set of wheels in, because it can be quite tricky. So what I did, the way I did it, was I put the point of the end of the axle into one of the axle boxes through the back, as you see with the hole in the back of the axle boxes, just like with any other wagon. And then using a cocktail stick, I got between the wheel and the other axle box, using light pressure with my fingers to about just prise it open enough to allow the other end of the axle to drop in and sit nice and snug, but not too snug to stop the wheels from being able to spin, because to be fair, I've done no drilling on these axles, on the bearings, and they actually roll pretty well. So I did accidentally buy the wrong coupling pockets. I bought the cranked ones when I should have bought the straight ones. I didn't realise, but easy fix, because it's the same width of plastic all the way through. So I just cut off the crank off of it, the little bit of arm that will go underneath, and managed to get it so it was level with the rest of my rolling stock, utilising the coupling as a little tool just to be able to align it a little bit better. And these, just like the rest of the build, were stuck down using super glue. Once that is all done, I went ahead and started to use Revel weathering powders. Now the first one I use is their mud green. This is just to be able to get a bit more of a, almost like a mossy sort of feeling, because my layout is quite a disused narrow gauge sort of starter preservation, so some wagons are still runnable, but you know, they look like they could do with a bit of a clean and a bit of a spruce up. So that is the effect that I'm going for. And last of all, I do the exact same with the white weathering powder, but all over the wagon body, and also a little bit over the chassis. Just starts to dull down the paintwork a little bit and makes it look a bit more matte and a bit more grimy. And just to finish the video off, here are some photos of the wagon that I've taken whilst it's on display, but also on my layout, along with the other wagon that you saw at the beginning of this video, because by the time this video had come out, I did actually manage to get out and spray it in the end. And yeah, you might see it. It's, well, big hint, it's the green one. Right, and that brings this video to a conclusion. Thank you for watching. All I'm going to say is, next video, I do not know when it's going to be out because my work rota is pretty much all over the place. I don't actually have like a good couple of days all the time in a row to be able to do work on the model railway or whatnot. So it will be a bit sporadic. However, next episode I should be doing more to that display base that I started in episode 2. Penechlin, part of the Northgate family.